The Arcade Archives presents Super Mario Memories! Woohoo! With special guests from all over the Arcade Archives network. To start off, we have RayGunn! Woohoo!
Mario. Probably the most influential character in all of video game history. He was not the star. Let's start there. He was in a game, most people know, Donkey Kong. He started there. His name wasn't even Mario yet. It was Jumpman. It wasn't until after the success of Donkey Kong that Mario got his name from their landlord of the warehouse that they built the Donkey Kong machines to distribute throughout the country. And then he ended up being the bad guy in his next game, which would be Donkey Kong Jr. And then, of course, he got his own standalone title, which is one of my all-time favorite games, and that would be Mario Brothers. And that's where he got his brother, Luigi. That's really the beginning. The nexus of Mario really started with the original Mario Brothers video game. Then, his history after that started really after 1985. That's really where everything kind of culminated into the game that we now know as Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers!
Nintendo changed the face of video game entertainment forever with the NES. Their regulations on software and other things that they were doing at the time changed the landscape of home gaming. But they were without a killer app. They were without something that would make their system stay around long enough to get a fan base. What most people don't remember is the NES had a limited production run in New York City and just outside where I lived. That's why I had one of the first ones. It was very exciting just knowing that there wasn't many people that had this machine. It wasn't like the Atari where everybody was scrambling and pushing themselves out of the way to grab one of these things and take it home to their kids. Nobody wanted video games. People had felt like they'd been burned by video game systems and spent a lot of money. So when the NES came out, it was a risk. The Famicom was doing very well in Japan, but here in the States, they weren't sure what they were going to get. What they did get was a loyal fan base of kids who, two things. One, had game systems at home already, and two, already knew Nintendo because of all their arcade licenses. Guys like me, we wanted to see what Nintendo could do at home because we were so used to the quality of the games that we had in the arcade. And to be able to bring those home and actually play them. Now, we had already had Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. at home. The ports from Coleco were very good, but they were ports from Coleco. They weren't as clean as the NES version. Once we had our hands on that NES and we were able to play that arcade at home quality, which is what we wanted back then, it was a game changer from day one. But the biggest problem was they were relying solely on re-releases of arcade titles and titles that were okay, but nothing spectacular. And that's when they developed this scrolling program, allowed everything to move smoothly across the screen. And they had to come up with a character to put in there. And that's what they did with Mario. They said, we could build a game around Mario and make him walk across the screen in almost like an obstacle course fashion. Remember, this was one of the very first platform games. I don't really think they were called platformers until Mario arrived. I know when Donkey Kong came out and Mario was involved in it, and you were Mario walking across those platforms, that's where the term platformer actually originated. So this brought it full circle. And that was what sold the Nintendo in the United States.
Dave from the Zoe Corpelli!
My first experience with Super Mario Brothers is on weekends, on Sundays. My family used to get together down my grandmother's house in Pennsylvania. It was all my cousins. I had like 8 or 9 cousins, and she was the first one to own a Nintendo because her kids loved it. And the only game we had was the the original Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combo. And we used to spend hours, and it would go from the oldest cousin to the youngest. And me being the youngest, I'd be the last one to be able to play it. And I'd only get one live, but we used to spend our weekends trying to get through as much of the original Super Mario Brothers as possible. And I remember every weekend it was fun because you start talking to kids at school about it, and you would start talking to, your friends, and then everyone had new rumors or new, this is where the warp pipes are, and this is how you do this, and this is how you get past to the last stage. And I remember having every member of my family gathered around the TV when we finally got to the last stage and defeated Bowser, and we all erupted into cheers for beating. It seems so silly now, but it was actually my earliest memories is my family gathering around watching a video game be played by every generation of my cousins and aunts and uncles together.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What was your favorite level from the original?
I still remember to this day the one that was the most frustrating was probably the one with is it Lakita?
I think so, yeah.
Lakita's the cloud.
Oh yeah, the little guys that shoot out the
So
spikes.
I remember hating that level to no end because it was the farthest you could get through warp pipes. You ended up in the stark black background with the brown pixels, and it had a lot of difficult jumps and stuff like that. But I remember it I was never able to outrun Lakita and the chomps together, or the piranha plants, sorry, in a certain sequence. Well, my cousin got so good at it, but he learned the trick where you take the Koopa shell and you keep hitting it until you went past numbers and letters and you got into shapes and color blocks, because you had basically an endless amount of lives. That's the level I remember the most. I don't know if I can say it's my favorite, but it's the most memorable one that sticks in my head.
Bernard 527! Woohoo!
Alright, well, my earliest experience with Super Mario Brothers was, I actually had a couple of friends who had NES growing up, and I would constantly go over to their house and play it, and we would try to see how far we would get, see how far we would get to the next level. And sometimes, like, one of the first player would always play the longest, and you were waiting forever because you were still stuck on world 1, 2, and you're just like, come on, die so I can play already. I can remember that. And then when I finally got an NES, I can remember getting Super Mario Brothers and playing it myself, and even getting my parents to play it. I remember, trying to teach my mom how to play through, and she couldn't get past that first bottomless pit for some strange reason, even though I tried to teach her that this is how you do it, and she would never. But that's how it went. But it was kind of a game that, like, I remember one time we went to a family friend's house, and we spent the whole night playing Super Mario Brothers. And I remember everyone getting around us, kind of watching us play and going, "Oh no, watch out for that!" or "Watch out for that!" "Oh, look out for that!" or "Oh no, look at that!" It was kind of a game that I think a lot of people at first really just love to kind of play. You love to kind of get from point A to point B a lot, and it really kind of, even though I didn't really beat it until I was a lot older, it was, even though it was hard and you died a lot, you still wanted to play through it. You still wanted to play it, and I think that it was something very interesting. And then I also remember for a long time we didn't have a washer and dryer, and it was really kind of a weird thing. And we went to this laundromat, and they had a arcade cabinet with Super Mario Brothers, an arcade version of Super Mario Brothers in it. And I would sit there and I'm like, "Can I have a quarter so I can play Super Mario?" I'm like, "You got that at home." I'm like, "No, but this is arcade. This is different. I can play it right here, right now." So I remember playing that and enjoying it a whole lot. Even though, I had it at home, it was still a great game to play. And still very fun. Even to this day, playing through it, playing on NES Remix, I really have still a lot of fun playing it.
What's the most memorable memory you have of playing the first Super Mario Brothers?
Finding the hidden warp zones for the first time. I can remember seeing that and going, oh my gosh, I don't have to go in line anymore. I can go to any level I desire. I can remember going to the last pipe, going to I think it was World 4, and then trying to beat the level going, okay, maybe I should have porked Warp 3, because this was really, really hard. And then after finding that one, finding the other hidden ones along the way as well, getting all the way to the last level, was kind of a neat idea that they had, and kind of hidden away everything. It was kind of a really neat thing. That was different from other games. You know, there were hidden stuff and codes in other games, but nothing like that you could skip levels, or that was kind of like part of the world almost. And I think that kind of rounded Super Mario Brothers very differently from all the other games.
Danny! Woohoo!
Classic of classics. Well, where does one begin? Well, with that one was actually my first introduction to the character and just the video games in general. Because, I mean, I can't remember the whole story or the whole memory of it, but I only remember I was staying at a babysitter's house, and her son had this system, which looked weird because I didn't know what it was at the time. But the moment he turned it on, and the moment I saw that title, and the stage 1-1, and the moment I saw Mario just move and the music, I was just, wow. I mean, the video game bug pretty much took a big bite, and it has not let me go since. And I'm glad that it never did, and I'm glad that I never got it out of my system. Because to someone who had only seen cartoons, you know, specifically the Looney Tunes, and other little things like that, this was something beyond my own imagination at that time. And as soon as the moment I actually picked up the controller, I was just, I mean, you basically had to get a pry bar to get the controller out of my hand. And because it was so addicting. Even now, with all its pixelated graphics, it still holds up. Still captivates your imagination. And I'm just really glad that it caught me, that it snagged me into the awesomeness at video games. And just the idea that, and going further into the game, I mean, with the gameplay itself, just being able to run around and jump on these bad guys who we would all come to know affectionately as Goombas, and of course Koopa Troopas and all the different variations of those guys. It was just you really felt like you were in a whole other world. Everything. I mean, it was just like forget about real life for the next several hours. This was your world now. And with a few items that were there to help you out, the super mushrooms, to the fire flowers, to even of course the oh so amazing Starman. It was a whole other ball game altogether. Just completely so. And even the fact that you could find bonus levels, which offered a whole other way to play, you couldn't ask for more. And especially for a kid who had never played video games before up until that point, let alone know what video games were, you couldn't ask for more. You just couldn't. And of course with the music itself, from the overworld theme to the underground to the underwater scene, and of course the castle itself. Again, like I said, it was just the perfect way to introduce any kid. Even now, there couldn't be a better way to introduce a child to the awesomeness of video games.
Super Mario Brothers 2!
Okay, well, Super Mario Brothers 2 has an interesting history. It really began in 1985. Shortly after the release of Super Mario Brothers here in the States, they released a Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan, but it's very different than the one we have today that we know. Nintendo of Japan felt that it was way too difficult for us in the States to play. It came with a lot more obstacles. Some of the courses were much tougher with longer jumps, and you had to deal with a poison mushroom that would actually kill you on one touch. So they felt that this game was way too difficult for American audiences, so they had to come up with something. They had to come up with something fast. And it turned out that they had a game that was based on a Japanese cartoon called Doki Doki Panic. And the interesting part was that the game included 4 different characters you could play, allowing for the person playing, or people playing, to select that person they wanted to play. That was a huge difference from the first and second game, or our first game, because most people remember one player was Mario, second player was Luigi, just like in the Mario Brothers arcade game. It worked exactly the same. The difference here was you had a select screen and you could pick from Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad. And each character had its own attributes. Mario being the most rounded of the group. You had Luigi, who was my favorite because he could jump incredibly high. Princess Peach could float temporarily, and Toad had super strength, so he could pick things up and throw them very quickly. But that was where the game really shined more, I think, than any of the other titles. In essence, it innovated in so many levels, from the fact that you could not only pick up objects, you could pick up enemies and throw them. In the first game, you had to be careful. You couldn't touch an enemy at all. You couldn't. All you could do was wait till you had your star, or you could jump on them and crush them, but you couldn't touch them. You couldn't run into them at all. In this game, you could actually jump on top, pick them up, and throw them, using them as a weapon to kill other things in your way. I always liked this one too because it used the power block from the original Mario Brothers. But it had so many power-ups in it. Like, for example, if you got so many cherries, you'd get your star. Of course, you could get potions that would give you extra hearts, which was another unique feature. Just the fact that you could jump on anything and pick it up, I really thought made the game different on every level. So that one stands out as my favorite. And the fact that it's very different. It does not have King Koopa in it. It has another character called Wart, who's never been used in anything else. And Wart actually was the bad guy in the original Doki Doki Panic. So it was just a, they didn't change that part. And the Shy Guys were actually from Doki Doki Panic. So for me, out of the group, if I had to pick one as a favorite, it's Super Mario Bros. 2. And, a little fun fact, most people don't remember, is it was actually the featured game in the very first issue of Nintendo Power. So that one stands out for that as well. So that one is my personal favorite.
All right, Mario Madness. That's funny. I sadly did not have that game, but my cousin did. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, cool. This is a sequel to Super Mario Brothers. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, this is something interesting. And because you didn't just get a chance to play as Mario, but you got a chance to play as his brother Luigi, Toad, everyone's favorite mushroom retainer, and of course, Princess Peach Toadstool herself. And I think what really brought me in was the fact that it was extremely different from the first one. Now, of course, granted, it wasn't until years later that we find out why that was the case. But at that time, it was a whole new gameplay thing, and because it was different from the first, that immediately brought you in. And it's just being able to, much like the first game, interestingly enough, you could find different areas, different things, And also you get a chance to face off against different foes. So even though you didn't deal with Goombas or Koopa Troopas or Hammer Brothers, just one of those guys, on this one you had a chance to deal with Shy Guys and Bezos and Birdos. And it was just, it was just pretty cool. And each character had their own different kind of style and their own kind of different way of being able to move around. Like Mario, for instance, he was pretty much, a good, strong, well-balanced character, whereas Luigi, you can count on him to make the long jump, and which could definitely come in handy in the right spots. Toad, while not really the fastest, or even the one who jumps the highest, that guy is surprisingly very strong. Because basically, whenever he would pick up a vegetable, sometimes that would hamper your character's movement if you were playing as anybody else. In Toad's case, not so much. You could basically have him pick up any kind of thing, and it didn't slow him down one little bit. Now, of course, with Princess Peach, she was pretty cool because she was as light as a feather. So basically, you could have her kind of, when you had her jump, she could hover for a little bit before she actually started, before gravity would take her back down. But that could come in handy if you had to cross a lot of large gaps. Especially if an enemy knocks you off something, or specifically off a magic carpet or something like that. And then, of course, facing off against the bosses, from Birdo to our favorite mouse, Bowser himself. You had to come up with different ways or how to stop these guys. So it wasn't just a simple thing as crossing the bridge and or even knocking them out with fireballs, because you didn't have any of those things. The only thing you had at your disposal were either vegetables or even bombs, if you could find them. And of course, the fact that you actually had a life bar this time around. So basically, you could take it. And if you were able to expand that life meter a lot more, you could pretty much take a few hits before you ended up dying, which could be pretty good. Not so much so if you're surrounded by enemies, but at least you had breathing room to work with. As opposed to the first game where if you got hit, you lost all your powers and you reverted back to regular good old Mario.
Mario Brothers 2 is by far my favorite, and it's the most obscure, obviously the most obscure because it wasn't originally a Mario game, it was some other Japanese game, but it was reskinned because of the popularity. And I didn't know that for years. It's my favorite Mario Brothers because every player plays distinctly different. The jumps are different, the speed of the movement's different, and everything like that. And it had the weirdest characters, and it had the potions to transfer into different worlds, and it's what the cartoon was based on was the second one. It was a really odd, going back and playing it, and that's probably the one I've gone back and played the most. It's this obscure experience where it is like a dream-like Mario, but it's something that's stuck with me forever. Being able to fight Birdos, it had sub-bosses, and it had all this other weird, like, slot machine, and even the music, it just always gets stuck in my head. It was very distinct for its generation.
Alright, favorite character to play?
Oh, Luigi. That jump is classic. The kick jump is by far my favorite thing, that you got that little bit of float, and for being, I had to be like 6 or 7 when that came out, or actually younger than that. That little more distinct jump was a lot of fun. And I remember my cousins, I was one of the few male cousins, I always picked him, and then they would fight over who would play as Peach and do the float, the distinct float jump. But that's what I remember most about that.
Alright, favorite level from Super Mario Bros. 2?
Oh, I can't even name one. I like a lot of the ones with quicksand, because I thought they were cool. I like doing all the jumps. I loved riding the ones that have like the long tracks and the ice, and you would be able to ride that camera tripod cannon thing through the level. If you just nailed that jump ride, that was always a lot of fun. That you could ride enemies in that. I really like that.
Ashrual!
It was a very interesting game. One of very few games that you got to play as Peach in when it first came out, and she had that unique ability of floating around, helped save you guys a lot throughout the levels. A lot of the other two characters, Mario and Luigi, did have some neat moves too. Luigi with his high kind of boomerang jump type of thing, and Mario with his extra high jump ability. Otherwise, was a pretty hard game, I'd say, for one, and not a typical Mario game.
Der Wynsten!
But, yeah, I'm thinking of my own character. That was pretty cool. Of course, the abilities of each one was awkward. But I normally stuck out with Mario or Peach. You know, Peach, you know, you float around everywhere. She's kind of a cheater, you know, for beginners. But, Mario. But Mario was my number one favorite one. You can play that one.
I can remember playing Super Mario Brothers 2, and being able to pick the different characters was kind of a neat idea. I actually enjoyed either playing Mario or playing Peach a lot, because Peach had the hover. I liked to play Mario only because he was kind of like the neutral character. He didn't jump really high, but he didn't have any hover abilities, but he was very easy to control, so it was very easy to get from point A to point B. I remember the first time I went down in one of those, it was supposed to be a warp pipe, but it looked more like a vase that you went into, and then you grabbed the key, and then all of a sudden the giant mask came to life and just started trying to attack you. Yeah, that was scary the first time that happened, because it was like, what's going on? And I even remember when they did the updated version of that for the Super Nintendo, when they did Super Mario All-Stars. They had put a giant mask in the background, and if you grab the key, the giant mask's eyes would glow, and like then the other mask would start falling. And I thought that was kind of an interesting little take on it. I remember finding out that if you hold down on the D-pad and you hold it for a little while, you can jump higher, which was a really great discovery for me and my brothers, because we could find out we could get to different places. The thing that always frustrated me was the bombs, throwing the bombs, because it was like you want it to go either really far or not too far, and you never could get it right on the first throw. It was always too far or too short, and you would either end up blowing up yourself, or you would end up throwing it in the bottomless pit, and you could never get it, and you're just like, oh. So I that's one of the things I can remember. I know that Super Mario had an awesome soundtrack, and I think it's probably one of the first soundtracks I can really remember from games. Getting in your head and just staying there forever was just something that even today, like at where I work, one of the positions that I have, I always hum video game music because it keeps my sanity. Even though that kind of sounds weird, it keeps my sanity. And a lot of times I hum either Mario 2 or Super Mario World, along with others. But I can remember the soundtrack very distinctly because it was different from Super Mario, the original Super Mario Brothers, which had a great soundtrack, but it basically was like 2 or 3 songs, and that was about it. This one had a couple of them, and I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. It gave it more atmosphere.
Who was your character, and who'd you always go to, gravitate to?
Mario.
You went old school.
I went Mario. I always went with Mario because he was easier to control for me. I did like Luigi and Peach because they had the jumps, and a lot of times that was helpful on some levels, but I always liked Mario because I could control him really easily. I don't think anyone really played Toad. I'm sorry, Toad, but nobody played you. It was a character I think I really, even to this day, I kind of like most video games. I kind of pick Mario, like unless there's the Mii characters in Mario Kart, I always pick Mario. I always pick Mario if I play, Super Mario 2, or even ended up playing Mario in Super Mario 3D World.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
3 was very different on many levels. First off, it had a special chip in it that allowed for
deeper colors, and scrolling was vastly improved. You had different suits you could put on. That was the game changer in that one. Is you all of a sudden had your Tanuki Mario, and you could you could basically hover, but you could fly up and then you could float and then come back down. Of course, you had the statue Mario, so you could hold still and nothing could hurt you. I always liked the boot. That was my favorite part. You could step on everything and kill it. And also the levels were very different. More reminiscent of the first one, only amped up a little bit more. So you're going into castles, but the castles were much more dangerous as opposed to just having those chains of fire that would spin around. You had walls that would drop and spikes would be on top, so you had to duck down and cover. You also had doorways you had to go through to other levels. It was easier to get lost in some of the levels. Trying to think of what else springs into my head about Super Mario Brothers 3. It's been so long since I've played 3. I am at a loss at the moment. I completely blanked out. Oh, of course. You had all the Koopalings, which, as a reminder, are not Koopa's children. They are Koopalings. So most people consider them as kids because, of course, in the Super Mario Bros. 3 television show, I believe, they're called his children. But each one was had a wand. You had to defeat them to get the wand back and give it back to a king that it belonged to. So that game, and of course, it was featured on the Wizard movie, which I remember seeing just the commercial, because I don't remember seeing it in the theater at that point. I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I do remember seeing the commercial, and when that wall separates and you see that screen for the first time, Super Mario Bros. 3, it was pretty cool. And it was that game really got a boost from the arcade version, which really was the same game. It was in a machine called Play Choice 10, and for you kids that have never seen one before, Nintendo basically, imagine if they took the NES and put it in an arcade cabinet and gave you a timer. And that's what the Play Choice 10 was. It was an NES in the machine, and basically you could put up to 10 games inside of it. You could pick what game you wanted to play. You could actually stop playing that game and move to another one. The machine was extremely popular at the time. And I remember we got Super Mario Bros. 3 before it was released to the public in the stores. So we were swamped with people that would want to come in and play Super Mario Bros. 3. And I remember being so interested in the game, after my arcade would close, I would go over and play for a couple hours on Super Mario Bros. 3 with no one around. So that was always a lot of fun. And then I ended up buying it like a few months later when it came out. But those are the three basic games that were on the NES. So basically you went from the original Super Mario Brothers. It brought in power-ups. By definition of the rest of the games, you only had, a couple. I mean, you had your Super Mushroom, you had your Fire Flower, and of course you had your Star. And then you went to Super Mario Bros. 2 where it brought in other things like you had an energy bar, so you had to build it up, and that was the first one that had an energy bar on it. You could pick up enemy and actually utilize them as a weapon, and each character having its own attribute. And then you go to Super Mario Bros. 3, it kind of changes it up yet again, and actually has things like a map, the Tanuki suit. You're, of course, only Mario and Luigi in that game, but each game brought something different to the table, whether it be technical, story, or innovative power-ups and things like that. Those are the first three that were on the NES.
Oh my gosh. Now, since the video game industry came into being, there are only a few games in existence that can truly build up a hype in such a way to where everybody wants to get one, where everybody wants to get this game. And then when it comes out, it doesn't just match the hype, it actually exceeds it. And Super Mario Bros. 3 was that game. And I remember specifically being in school, and I believe this was around the same time that a certain movie, like the name of The Wizard, was also being made at the time. And granted, I did end up, I believe there was like a year difference between getting the game as well as seeing the film itself. But I remember almost all my classmates were talking about this game, Super Mario Bros. 3, and I was like, whoa, there's going to be a third one? Wow, this is cool. But I didn't know what it was. And at the time, I wasn't aware of the magazine Nintendo Power at the time. It wasn't until like a year or two later that I actually did. But at the time, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it. I'm like, what is this? What is this? And then, one day, when I went to my aunt's house, my cousin, the first thing he did when he saw me, he flashed the Super Mario Bros. 3 cartridge right there in front of my face. And I'm like, whoa! And the moment he put it into his NES control deck and plugged it in and played it, it was just, get me that game! Of course, granted, he was the only one who had it. My parents did not really budge in getting me the Super Mario Bros. 3 games, but no worries, because after all, thanks to the awesomeness that is the Virtual Console, I now have it. But again, back then, when I got a chance to play it, my gosh, the hours you could waste on that game alone. And just the number of Easter eggs and secret rooms, passageways, and items in general that you could try out, from the tried and true Super Mushroom and the Fire Flower and the Starman to, of course, new things like the Tanuki suit, the Super Leaf, both of which could give you the ability to fly, although I do like the Tanuki suit more because that one allowed you to turn into a statue. And which would come in handy, especially against even enemies that were thought to be invincible, like the Chain Chomp. And you can even take out the rocket engines, interestingly enough, on the Doom ships. And of course, the fan favorite hammer suits, which, let's face it, that could allow you to kick all sorts of butts with that one. And just the map screen and the build-up, and the cool thing too is that the distinct world. There was something about each world specifically that just allowed you to, it just brought you in. And even if you died several times, at least you got a chance to see everything and see how it worked. And fighting off against the Koopalings, holy moly. Now some of those guys are a lot tougher than others, but man, once you defeated them, you really got a sense of accomplishment. But although, as you got further into the world, and you face off against those Koopalings, don't be surprised if you find yourself dying a few times and the Doom ship then moves around across the map screen and you got to chase it down. And you just hope you have the anchor on hand, which is a very rare item to get a hold of if you don't know how to get it. And of course, when you get to Darkland, Bowser's World, it's just a build-up. And then finally getting to the castle and facing off against Bowser himself. Of course, granted, if you have the Fire Flower or the Hammer Suit, you can pretty much take him out, no problem. But if you didn't, then you really had to be crafty with how to defeat him. But the payoff at the end, so worth it. And believe you me, like I said in the beginning, this is one game that truly matched the hype and more.
Super Mario Bros. 3, I was lucky enough to have a childhood with Fred Savage in a movie called The Wizard, which was my first exposure, all of our first exposures to Super Mario Bros. 3, and how great it was. And it was a game that I never owned as a kid because everybody in my family owned it. When that came out, every cousin, there was many times I was babysat down in Aunt's house, and all we had was a TV, a joystick, or a gamepad, and Super Mario Bros. 3. Everyone owned it. It was the most widely, I think, the most owned NES game of all time, so we just played the ever-living hell out of it.
Favorite level from that?
Giant Land, Giant World. Giant World, I think it's 4-1 it starts on when you get the warp whistle. Because you gotta take your who doesn't have the first 3 levels of that game memorized? How you have to kill the dry bones, to use the tail, to fly up, to go down, to open the chest to get your first warp whistle. Everyone remembers the first time they did that. Everyone remembers and should remember when you learned 1-1, you can duck down through the white box and go behind the scenes. It was a game-changing platformer again. And its innovation is still being mimicked to this day. But Giant World was so obscure and so different that it was like an altered reality. It was like much like how Mario Brothers 2 was. The whole thing was an altered reality to the point that all the levels didn't seem that original. But Mario Brothers 3 did things that really were a game changer.
Okay. Super Mario Bros. 3. Kind of remember that one, used to play that with my brother quite a bit back in the day when we went to a friend's house, get a raccoon suit and go crazy, just beat levels. Yeah, that was kind of a fun one. Always having to go to the next castle type of thing too.
Favorite level if you can remember it.
Don't truly have a favorite level. They were all pretty good levels. There was a few of them that was not the fondest, but I can't even remember the name of them. It's been that long.
Describe it a little bit.
Usually it's the sea levels where you have the big fish chasing you. Yeah. Sucker always chomps you. You're like, no! I was almost done with that level.
Super Mario Bros. 3. You gotta love the environment for that one. Watching all the, the plants and everything start dancing and everything. Of course, gotta be careful with the... Oh, and also the costumes. The costumes made it pretty cool, too. Yeah. Of course, you still had the costumes for all the other ones, but, you had more variety. And also, the costume that I really did like was the Hammer Bros costume. Fling those little hammers back at them. Boy, got evil in that one.
What was your favorite level in Super Mario Bros. 3?
Oh, well, the one that I technically remember the most was the levels where the sun would come out and try and chase after you and try to take you on out. Those were challenging there to try and dodge. But I think that some of the Bowser flying ships were probably my favorite. Those and the tanks and stuff in the later worlds.
Believe it or not, my earliest memory of Super Mario Bros. 3 was actually the McDonald's toys. The McDonald's toys that they had coming out. We were all excited because there was finally some Super Mario stuff that we could have. The other thing that stuck with me was the raccoon tail and ears. That was very iconic to me. And even to this day, it's still my favorite suit. It's still my favorite Mario transformation, is transforming into the raccoon suit and being able to fly. Because I can remember the first time I ever played that game and learned that I could fly in the game. It changed the dynamic of the game itself. And being able to fly, I thought changed it dramatically from all the other games previously, because now you can not only fly, but you can hit bad guys with your tail, and you can get other boxes that you previously weren't able to even think about getting. Being able to find secrets above the level, seeing that the level is a lot bigger than than you think. I think that was probably the most iconic memory for me for Super Mario Bros. 3.
What is your most vivid memory of playing the game? If it's level or a boss fight or
actually
a Koopa Kid.
Actually, the most vivid memory I have, this is gonna be really sad, but the most vivid memory I ever had was the day my grandfather died. We had just gotten the news on the telephone that he had passed away of a heart attack, and my dad was a wreck. And that whole time, I guess to kind of help us through the stress and, you know, help me, I remember playing Super Mario Bros. 3 a lot that whole time. I remember just sitting down and just, my dad would probably go in his room for hours on end, so I would sit and I would play Super Mario 3 a lot. You know, to try to, I guess, to escape for a little bit, I guess. To try to go and try to kind of deal with what had just happened to my family. I can remember, you know, playing that game hours and hours on end. We only had one TV in our house. It was the front room TV for a long time, and so I couldn't play the NES unless my dad came home. When my dad came home, I had to stop playing the game and let him watch TV. But it was the first time in a long time that I was actually able to sit there for hours on end and play the game, and I think it actually kind of helped a little with the grieving, with kind of putting this in my head of what had just happened, I think that's probably my most powerful memory of Super Mario Bros. 3, and I think that's probably why it's a very personal game to me, because even today I still like to pull it out every once in a while. I've got it on my Wii U, and I pull it out every once in a while and like to play it. When I heard that they had put the raccoon tail back in New Super Mario Bros. 2, I was ecstatic because I got to play the raccoon tail. Although I was disappointed in Super Mario Land when you couldn't fly with it, you could only just hover. But I forgive you, Nintendo, for that. And hopefully you will see the error of your ways in the next games. But yeah, that's probably my most vivid memory.
Super Mario World! Woohoo!
And then, of course, the year after Super Mario Bros. 3 comes out, we get the Super Nintendo. And the release game on the Super Nintendo is Super Mario World. And that one, to me, was probably another one of my favorites. Believe it or not, the one thing that stands out to me about Super Mario World is the music. The music was vastly different, of course, being a 16-bit machine. But the music stands out to me above all else because it had almost like a banjo sound to it. And the little sound effects when the screen would wipe, it always got me there. And of course, the big addition was a little friend, Yoshi. All of a sudden, you had a character you could actually ride on and pick things up. And I was always fascinated by the different shells gave him different attributes. He could float, he could shoot fire, and then of course Mario had his cape. So all of a sudden he was like a superhero, and I always loved gliding with that cape, pulling back on the stick and watching him, and he would just keep on going and keep on. You could get to the end of the level if you had enough power. So that part was kind of like Super Mario Bros. 3 had that little power bar. And if you ran fast enough, you could fly in the air, and all of a sudden he could hover and actually get great distances. Whereas the Tanuki suit, you went up and you could get to other platforms. And then you could float down gently if you wanted to, and get a little farther. But with that cape, you could take off and keep on going. So I really dug that. But and I liked Super Mario World.
That one I remember a little bit more. It was quite fun. You had all the little secrets that you could do to get to the next future worlds and faster. I enjoyed being able to play as Yoshi. That was so much fun, and then using the little level that you got down the ways to keep getting unlimited lives and all the power-ups you ever needed. That was fun, and unlocking the Starwood was kind of fun too. Yeah, I think the best part of it was Yoshi. Probably some of the first levels of the game were my fondest. You know, as you went on, they got more difficult, more crazier. But yeah, I think the first ones, just getting you into the game was kind of fun and easy going.
Super Mario World. Ah, that's the one I played the most. The classic stuff, anyways. You know, jumping on Yoshi, first being introduced to Yoshi and have to feed the little sucker and make him bigger. And of course, there's that one level, like the one secret area where you can get, infinite lives and stuff like that. You didn't have to go hunting for lives or anything but that. But, and then, of course, getting gear. Actually becoming Super Mario, flying around everywhere. You gotta love that.
What was your favorite level in Super Mario World?
Super Mario World. I would have to say the level where you were introduced to Yoshi for the very first time. Breaking him out of that beautiful shell, saying hi to him for the first time, and and then he grew up so quick when he got popped out of that shell, which was crazy. But hey, what can we say? All children grow up quick, and kids, just remember, don't grow up too quick, because if you do, well, you could be ridden on and eventually fall into your own demise.
Wow. Now, that one I actually come to appreciate in later years, because I remember around the time when Super Mario Bros. 3 had come out and whatnot, it was huge. I mean, Nintendo Mania was just at its peak. Like, almost everybody wanted to get something that had the word Nintendo labeled on. But right around that time, and I'll never forget this, there was I'm not sure if it was a video game shop, but it was one of those AV places that sold TVs and whatnot, and they had these big TV sets that were promoting the Super Nintendo. And I'm like, what's this? Because at the time I was seeing ads for the Sega Genesis, but nothing on the Nintendo front. But then when I saw those promos, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then it showed Mario, and it was like, wow. Because it was Mario, but this time the world was bigger, everything was a lot more detailed than before. And of course, we got introduced to our favorite little dinosaur, Yoshi. There weren't that many items, interestingly enough. And that really made me wonder, because going back, when I first saw Super Mario World, I thought, how can you top Super Mario Bros. 3? I mean, because that's almost like the zenith. But having had a chance to play Super Mario World later on, many years later, and especially nowadays on my virtual console, when one person once said that it was too much of a good thing, and they were right, but in a very good way, because even though there weren't too many items, but what you had to work with was really amazing. So instead of getting a raccoon ears and a tail, you actually got a tape whenever you touched the leaf, which is pretty cool, because at least now you could truly, run, leap tall buildings in a single bound without having to worry about touching down after a while. And there was actually a way to make sure you could stay flying for a little bit, which is pretty cool. But the sense of exploration, and because this time it took a sense of exploration, if there were so many things you could find in Mario 3, that was taken another notch in Mario World. Because on that one, so many secret passageways you could take. Passageways within passageways. Which kind of makes you wonder if Inception, if Chris Nolan or any of his guys on his team saw Super Mario World, thought, passageways within passageways. And secret passages within passages. I think there might be something here. But the thing is, it is a gem. And again, just the number of passageways you can go to and alternate routes. And the thing is, if you know all the passageways, you could pretty much beat the game without having to go to all the world. If you know how to do it. I haven't gotten there yet myself, but I'm working on that. But just in all, just amazing stuff. And not only do you get a chance to meet Yoshi, but you get a chance to meet some of his other fellow Yoshis as well, of different colors and such, each of which have their own abilities. And that's going back to that too. Not only can Yoshi eat any of the toys that he runs into almost, but depending on which Koopa he eats, and which shell color they have, you can do different things. Now, of course, not to spoil it for anybody who hasn't yet played it, but depending on which Koopa shell you have, you can pull off some cool things. Like a red Koopa shell, instant fireball. A blue Koopa shell, you can fly. Or if you eat a yellow Koopa shell, you're going to be pounding the ground, and it's going to shake things up. But really, in general, it's just the level design and the way everything came together, especially when you face off against the bosses. Because if you thought the Koopalings were tough in Mario 3, on this one, they get a little bit more crafty, and you really got to be on your guard when it comes to facing off against them. But just like in Mario 3, the payoff after beating the boss and finishing a level is still there, and I'm glad that it is. So, in all, with Super Mario World, definitely deserves to be right up there. And it definitely brought Mario from the 8-bit world into the 16-bit generation. Even if it meant having to contend with Sonic for a time.
Actually, it was the first game I think I played for the Super Nintendo. I actually didn't own a Super Nintendo until after, just about when the Nintendo 64 actually came out.
Oh wow!
I was a Sega boy because I was a huge Sonic fan. But I had lots of friends who had the Super NES, and we would play Super Mario Land 2. I think my most memorable thing about Super Mario World is Yoshi. I think adding Yoshi was a very interesting dynamic to the game. I think it was different in that, you know, now you have a companion to kind of help you out. You can like eat enemies and you know, and eat the fruit off the trees and stuff like that. I remember finding out that there were different colored Yoshis, and then finding out each one had a different different abilities. My favorite was the blue Yoshi because whatever the blue Yoshi ate gave him wings. You know, Yoshi would have, you know, this. That Yoshi would have the wings to fly around because usually if you had just the regular green Yoshi, you'd have to find a blue turtle shell to eat, and then you get wings. You know, just like Red Bull, except blue. You know, it's totally different. It's different colors. But anyways, I think that was probably my most memorable. I think another thing that really I loved about Super Mario World was the music was another thing. I love music, and that's another one of those games that just had an amazing soundtrack and sound effects, and the sound was very different from most of the games previously, and even after. It had a very, very unique just look and feel to it than the other Mario games.
Super Mario 64!
The next one was an enigma to me until my DS, and that was Super Mario 64. And the amazing thing is, I remember seeing the demo in a department store. I think it was Sears or whatever. And I remember seeing that demo and seeing Mario's face for the first time, just hovering on the screen. And I was like, I have to get an N64 just for this game. Because, again, I had been a Mario fan forever. And for me, I wanted that game until I saw the controller. And then I was like, I don't like this controller at all. I had a really hard time with it. So I begrudgingly stepped away from Mario for a couple years because of that. And then again, I started playing it when I got my original DS, which I thoroughly enjoyed the game, albeit it is slightly different on the DS. But it's still, just being able to walk through that castle for the first time and actually go through paintings and just the full range of being able to move around, not on a platform anymore. You're on a planet, you're on a world, and you're walking and running and jumping through it. And it was, I was a PlayStation person at that point, and when the N64 came out, I hated the controls. I was so jealous. And the only thing we had was Croc was the closest thing we had to Super Mario 64, and it was so choppy and slow compared to, and of course, Spyro came out a short while later, and of course that improved on it. So you had the feel and the scope of that game, but it wasn't Mario, and so it was. Sadly, I did not have that until I had my DS.
Super Mario 64. I really, really love Super Mario 64. I remember playing it for the first time. It was such a interesting thing, and this has been way before I played Zelda. And you know, it felt like a world that you were in. It was no longer just a place that you went from point A to point B. You were actually in this world. You were actually running around Peach's castle. You were actually jumping into, you know, pictures and going to other worlds. You know, you actually had to figure out how to beat some of the bosses. I remember I had a hard time with the first boss, mainly because a lot of times when I play games like Super Mario 64, I don't really read. I just kind of okay, let's just get to it. I'll figure it out. So I had a hard time trying to beat that first boss. He would always knock me off the hill, and I'd have to run back up and try to get him. But when I finally figured out that I had to read what he told me, he told me how to beat him, then I kind of figured it out. But it was kind of interesting because you literally had to pick him up, throw him off the hill, which was a lot of effort, and it was definitely something. And again, it was something different. It was something new. It was something unexpected. I didn't expect Mario 64 to be as good as it is. Even the water levels where you had to swim were actually not that bad. Although the camera angles were so bad. But even the water levels though made you feel like you were underwater. Made you feel like you were swimming. Even had the music to go around with it. That was another Mario game. I really enjoyed the music, the soundtrack, the music that accompanied it really made you feel like you were part of the world. And I think that Super Mario 64 really even changed the whole Mario dynamic completely. It was really, really just a fun game to play, you know. And even like the beginning screen with the being able to stretch Mario's face and just, you know, do all kinds of weird, funny things with Mario's face was kind of an interesting thing. And even hearing Mario talk for the first time, that was interesting. Hearing Mario's voice and hearing that, yeah, woohoo, yahoo, was just, oh man, it was really, really cool. So it just made you feel like you're more part of the world, and I think that's why I loved Super Mario 64 a lot.
When the N64 launched, I distinctly remember going to a Toys R Us and they had a bunch hooked up. And I remember just being amazed by the technology of the time and being able to pull on Mario's face on the start screen. I remember being able to do the triple jump for the first time, doing the handstand on the tree. And it wasn't really the game that memorized me. It was because that was the time we were going from the Super Nintendo to the N64, which was a huge jump in technology. And I just finally remember elements of that game being the first time I felt like I was playing a 3D game.
Super Mario 64. Well, a little bit I did play before my brother took over it was... what? It was really a good game, actually, you know. One of the very first few 3D games out there of Mario that you got to play and enjoy. The different power-ups with the metal hat, the flying hat was kind of cool. Him losing his hat for the first time, which was kind of insane a little bit. You know, it was definitely a game to remember. We had got every star in the game, and we had got the Yoshi. But unfortunately, we had let a friend borrow it, and we never got the save cartridge back, so we lost our progress.
Favorite level in Super Mario 64?
Oh, probably the Bomb level. It was fun to find the Bomb. The racing guy you had to race against all the time was annoying, but it was a fun level overall. You know, you got to experience almost everything on it. shortly after that one, I'd probably say the desert levels were kind of fun to play too.
Super Mario 64. Intriguing, a very intriguing game. Never got a chance to do 3D Yoshi. I got all the stuff. No, I did actually. That one I was actually able to complete everything for. And then I got Yoshi and got to try him out for a little bit. I also liked yeah. Well, now then you got to change your different hats. Poor Mario lost his hat multiple times. And then of course, that iconic scene where you're grabbing Bowser's tail and spinning that sucker around and giving the old, giving a good old toss to them bombs and have them coming back to you. It's kind of like a punching bag. Big old huge punching bag. You keep hitting him and he keeps coming back, baby.
When you look at the Mario games, they fit perfectly in 2D. Like you can play any great 2D Mario game and you'll find yourself hooked. But to take those 2D concepts, those 2D concepts that Miyamoto and his team used to bring Mario to life on those games, how in the world do you do it in a 3D world? Because it's almost impossible, because it seems like almost like a very daunting task. But Miyamoto and his team pulled it off. And I remember, and for the first time since my Nintendo Entertainment System, my parents finally caved in and got me a Nintendo 64. But even though I didn't have Mario 64 to go with it, but I did get a chance to play it at my Best Buy and all those other places, and wow, everything that you thought you loved about Mario in 2D, you will love just as much and more in 3D. And just the way to do it, and just the way it was done, just amazing. And you don't even have to even really be focused on the objective at hand. Like if you just wanted to kill a few minutes, you could basically just turn the game on and just run around and just have a great big holy time. And it was just, again, everything. It was the best way to describe Mario 64 is that it's a perfect example of how you can take a 2D character and a 2D environment and put them all in a 3D background without messing with the elements that make Mario games great. And Mario 64 is the perfect example over how to do it. And even other developers have pretty much swore by this game as one of the best ones out there, and rightfully so. And not only that, but again, I'm glad that of all of Mario's abilities and powers, I'm glad that they still kept the ability to fly. And because now you really got a chance to see him fly in a full 3D world. So, and again, when people say it's the greatest game of all time, it's no joke. Mario 64 really is.
Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo!
Of course, we have Super Mario Sunshine. Now, for whatever reason, this game, either it's a love-hate kind of thing. I personally adore the game. I think it still holds up today, graphically and otherwise. I love the idea of having this device on my back and being able to fly, and just the expanse of the worlds in that game, the scope of it, I think surpassed Super Mario 64. Like you would see a cave, and you could actually get to that cave, and then you could figure out how to get in that cave. Whereas Super Mario 64 was confined to the general area. You could, go into things and whatnot, but for the first time, you're looking out in the distance at the horizon, and there's something, and you could get there. Even if it took you 10 minutes to get there because of all the enemies that were coming after you, you could finally get to it. And I loved walking through the little town, and it was just, to me, that was a really solid game.
Super Mario Sunshine. This is one of the games for the GameCube that I didn't actually play right off the bat. I actually didn't play it till much, much later in the GameCube's life span. But I do remember the game. One of the things that I really love about Super Mario Sunshine is that it was a much brighter palette than even previous Mario games had been. It really felt like it was a brighter Mario game. I will have to say, though, that even though the color palette was bright, it kind of was a darker storyline in some respects. With the fact that, Mario has been framed, and now you find out about this other Mario, which actually, spoiler alert, turns out to be Bowser Jr., and then Bowser Jr. claims that Peach is his mom, and kind of a weird, just all kinds of weird mixes and meshes in this storyline. But besides that, I really enjoyed the whole design of the village and some of the characters that you meet. I like that it actually feels a lot bigger than the Peach's castle, where it felt when in Mario 64 you were more just confined to the castle and that's it. This felt more like you were actually on this entire island and you could explore the whole thing. One of my favorite things to do was to take the backpack, the water jet, the flood. That's right, the flood. And I love to when you got the power up to use it like a jet ski, and you could go across the waves that way. I thought that was kind of interesting. I also even though it's weird, I also kind of like the fact that you had to go around cleaning up things. I thought that kind of lended something new. I also liked the fact that you had kind of a cinematics. I think that was kind of something that Mario 64 kind of had, but not really. And a lot of the other Mario games didn't have. I mean, this game started off with Mario and Peach on an airplane going to this island. Peach wasn't kidnapped yet. And it was just kind of a fun idea. One of the things that I've always thought about Mario is very much in the spirit of Popeye, where every Mario game is every Popeye episode is something different from the last one. They don't really have too much continuity. And it's just kind of a fun, what if this scenario? What if we put our characters in this scenario? And that's what I kind of like about Mario, is it seems like every Mario game is a different kind of Mario galaxy, if you will. A different kind of Mario universe. And you get to see all kinds of different aspects of it. And sometimes they even mesh a little bit. I like the fact that they brought back Yoshi in Super Mario Sunshine, where you get to actually ride him around and use him as well as your Flood. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea as well. The boss battles were actually really, really neat, and some of them were designed very, very well. Just a whole graphical upgrade from Super Mario 64. So I really did enjoy it, and it was a fun little vacation, if you will.
Wow. Now, that was pretty interesting, because, for one thing, it retained everything that was good about Mario 64. But this time, instead of having, this time it kind of, much like the game itself, it's kind of a little bit of a detour, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way at all, because with this one, you basically, to make a long story short, Mario gets accused of littering the entire island in graffiti. Of course, granted, it is somebody else, but now Mario's got to clear his name. But with this one, because it's graffiti, Mario finds himself in the possession of a cool little water, like a water jetpack that can basically shoot water and has all kinds of functions about it. But this one, having played it, it's actually pretty nice and it's pretty fun. And there's not really too many things about it that'll detract from the Mario experience. It may not be as necessarily, it's not as groundbreaking as, say, Mario 64 is, but the gameplay factor is still there and it's still intact. Because after all, like the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And luckily, though, Mario Sunshine really did work very good. And but it was pretty good, because at least this way, this gave Nintendo time to basically really, focus on just making fun games. So that way, when the successor to the GameCube came along, they would really be able to deliver a real Mario experience in such a way that would really get us just smiling once again. So with Mario Sunshine, I gotta say, it's a really fun game overall. Maybe not as groundbreaking as some of its predecessors, but it's still, nevertheless, it's still a fun game to play. And plus, come on, who doesn't want to just fly? Who doesn't want to just run around and shoot water at people, and not just graffiti?
Didn't really play it. I watched my brother play it. I'm here to tell you, it was a very hard game. He had a crazy time trying to get everything, and then him losing his progress during the adventure was not too fun either. But it was kind of cool because you got to find out the mysterious Mario was actually baby Bowser Jr., if you want to call him. It was kind of fun.
Oh, the Greek tragedy of Mom. I loved the game. It was super hard. Probably the hardest game that I played in a long time. And I've actually I had almost all the stars, and I have beaten every level, almost every level. And I got to the very end, and my mother used to teach piano lessons, and one of her students accidentally deleted that game. And I cried from that day. That was a very, very sad day. I do enjoy it. I love that game, but I didn't have the heart to go back and play it. Maybe in the future, but yeah, it still hurts.
Super Mario Sunshine favorite level?
That is a very tough question. I would probably go with the harbor level. Remember that, taking on that giant, the giant squid, kind of make me feel like one of those old fishermen. That one, I remember the hotel level where you have the hotel and you have these huge floating paint manta rays painting the whole entire area, and the hotel vanished, and washing the paint off and watching that puppy come out of nowhere. Well, and you gotta love how everything pops out everywhere. Kind of makes you wish that you just wash all dirty things out of your house and everything just appears like that. Oh, where's my keys? Oh, damn it, I got it. Pull out my my big old squirt gun, squirt it down, watch that, watch my keys just appear right there. Woo!
Mario Sunshine, I was in college in Central Florida. My roommate had a GameCube. He was obsessed with his GameCube. It was the game that he would use to show the GameCube off for all the naysayers, because there was the Xbox kids at that time, and I was at that time a loyal PS2. But there was something special about that generation of Mario games for the GameCube, where the games were very polished, they were very clean, they told a great story, and the world felt alive for the first time, with other characters and the interaction with it. And it was a different version, or a different way to interact with Mario, which I think since those games, you've seen a lot more experimentation with gameplay controls and mechanics from the Mario series. Okay.
Super Mario Galaxy! Super Mario Galaxy 2!
Of course, getting the Wii, very excited about Super Mario Galaxy, and I got that game, and I loved the play mechanic of being able to fly from one planet to the other, and how it was a platformer, yet it wasn't a platformer. It kind of combined the two seamlessly, and picking up those stars. And believe it or not, first Mario game I have not finished. But that's it.
Ah, yes. The game where Mario boldly goes where no plumber has gone before. Well, I sadly never had the chance to play Mario Galaxy 2, But I have Mario Galaxy 1, and it is a fun game because it basically, man, you know, I mean, with this one, it takes the concept of playing games on the Wii Remote, which was still a novel concept at the time, and just allows you, and it just allows you to take Mario and play with the powers of gravity, essentially. And by that meaning, like, to where you can basically travel from planet to planet, from place to place, but in such a way to where you almost just want to just run around and have fun and try to avoid getting sucked into a black hole, because those really are not fun. But it really gives the feeling of almost like you really are controlling Mario, but in a way to where it brings the concept of gravity, you know, to the gameplay. It allows gravity to be a gameplay mechanism, but in a way to where it doesn't feel like it's just tacked on. It really still has that organic feel that when you combine it with the Mario games and their famous gameplay overall, it is a very fun title and definitely one to have. And not only that, but you also get a chance to be introduced to new powers, new abilities, from B Mario to Ice Mario, interestingly enough. And of course, finally, at long last, we get introduced to our favorite little power-up, the Fire Flower. And just with all the cool things you can do, so many like puzzles you can do, and it's funny because I haven't yet unlocked all the Easter eggs on Mario Galaxy 1. But given that I have the strategy guide, it is definitely one that I tend to go back and unlock all of them, because it's a really fun game to play, and just again it really brings the concept of gravity to the gameplay experience, and it actually enhances it in a very good way. And I'm glad it's really a must-have.
Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 were beautiful games. They had so much detail to the galaxies out there and so much you can do. And the certain levels were not the funnest, but they were really beautifully done, I would just say. Rosalina was a nice addition to the character roster, you know. It would have been nice to see some more of Daisy in some of the Mario games eventually. Maybe in the future we'll see more. I know you see her in games nowadays and she's just kind of like there. There's no real story to her.
Oh, those were beautiful games. Those were very beautiful games. Very hard to do the controls for when you go on the opposite side of the world and stuff like that. But very, very good games. If I had a choice between 1 and 2, I would probably say 2. But they're both just beautifully done. You couldn't ask for better games right there.
Okay.
Of course, multiplayer was needed well, they technically did have a multiplayer, but yeah, it would have been nice to have 2 people running around instead of one shooting those little bits in the stars and the other one doing the game.
Galaxy. Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Just like most Mario games, I really think that Super Mario Galaxy really changed the dynamic of the Mario game. It had a more cinematic feel, I think. I loved the whole gravity add-on to it. I thought that was kind of a neat idea. I liked the bee suit, and the cloud suit was really kind of cool, where you could like flip and make little clouds for you to jump on. I also really liked the Ghost Mario suit. I thought that was kind of neat. And I loved the levels, because the levels were very, very, very designed very, very well. Some of them were jumping from like one planet to the next. Some of them were classic Mario. Some of them were just really designed very, very well. Just the look and feel of them. The boss fights were very innovative. I can remember one of the boss fights, you had to take this drill platform and use your spin ability to drill into the earth and hit the bad guy from the other side. I thought that was kind of a neat idea. And even adding a little bit of co-op was kind of neat, where you could have the second player kind of collect stars for you. And then kind of bringing back the hub world, kind of like what Super Mario 64 had. I thought that was kind of a good little throwback to Super Mario 64. I think another little add-on was the fact that you had Rosalina's story. You kind of gave the character a background and a story. So, and she wasn't kind of the helpless princess, even though Peach again was kidnapped. Peach, get bodyguards. That's what they're for. I think it was really neat, interesting. Now, Galaxy 2, I don't really remember much of the story, but I do remember the levels. And the levels took what they did in Galaxy 1 and upped it to a 10 degree that was just amazing. And sometimes very frustrating at times. I also liked, one of my favorite levels from Galaxy 2 was the throwback level, where they basically redid the entire one of the levels from Super Mario 64. Man, was that such a cool thing to kind of go back and play through. It was such a nostalgic kind of romp around that I enjoyed very much.
No Super Mario Brothers Wii! And no Super Mario Brothers Wii U!
We had the new Super Mario Brothers on the 3DS, and that was really good. I enjoyed that, but that was more of a stroll down memory lane kind of thing for me at that point. But new Super Mario Brothers Wii, all of a sudden you're 4-player again. You can actually go on a quest together, and just that was another game changer. And also in level design, again, it was that whole, like, all of a sudden we had these spinning things in the ground, wheels that you had to deal with, and the landscape is always very important in a Mario platformer, and this one did not disappoint.
I loved the new Super Mario Brothers series. I was very happy with the first one on the DS. I played it like crazy. I loved the Mega Mushroom. I thought that was really cool because you could just stomp your way through everything, just destroy everything in your path. I thought that was a neat little addition. The music, again, was really good, but it brought a nostalgia. It brought that side-scrolling back. And I think before that game, I think really all of us in the gaming community, especially I grew up with side-scrolling games, thought that side-scrolling was all but dead. Because really, right after the Game Boy Advance was done, there really wasn't a need for side-scrollers anymore. No consoles had side-scrollers. None of the big, PlayStation had never really had side-scrollers really at all. It was very rare. And Microsoft, to my knowledge, didn't have any side-scrolling games. But to go back to that formula, I think was really kind of a neat kind of callback, and also kind of just a nod to the fans saying, we know you love these side-scrolling games, we're going to bring them back. And I really think because of that first DS game, I think that it really kind of reinvigorated the side-scrolling genre. 2 I liked because it added the coin element. Because I really think the coins in Super Mario aren't really that important anymore, which is sad to say, because, the only reason you get the coins now is just to get an extra life after you get 100. But it gave a new meaning to coins, where you had a counter in the game that tell you how many coins you've collected through the life of your game. And the goal, like they made this goal for people to get like 1 million, I think it was like 1 million coins, something like that. And you unlocked some extra stuff, I think, if you hit 1 million. But adding the gold Mario, the golden flower, where you can basically shoot like little fire grenades was kind of neat. And then also, adding the gold bad guys was kind of neat as well. New Super Mario Wii was really neat because you added 4 players. And even though at times it can get really chaotic and you're just like, all right guys, let's beat this level now. Let's stop killing each other. It still was kind of a fun thing to do. I love the propeller suit. I love the penguin suit. And I really, really enjoyed playing through that game, and being able to play with other people was kind of a fun thing. And that even includes going on to New Super Mario Wii U, or just U. I think it's just U. Super Mario U. You added a whole new dynamic with the flying squirrel suit, and being able to help each other out and turn to bubbles and stuff like that. There were some levels that I think you really needed to kind of work as a team to kind of get some of the coins and different stuff. So, and I really think that there's a lot of games now that even use that formula for side-scrolling and collection and different stuff like that. I think that's really what I credit invigorated the side-scrolling genre. And then, because of New Super Mario Brothers, now we have games like Shovel Knight and Shantae, and DuckTales Remastered, and even Rayman Legends was an awesome side-scrolling game. And I'm glad to see that side-scrolling is kind of coming back as a genre of video games that people enjoy.
Beautiful graphics, brought back a lot of old memories for me. And then of course the new costumes. I liked how they kind of incorporated multiple games into that one, into all those franchise. Of course, most of them kept the same, gameplay and stuff like that, but I loved how they got some of the old franchise matched into that one there. I'm trying to think of some of the cool, like the first one, in each one they got progressively better. Like, the first one was pretty decent. Next one came out with the Yoshis, it got better. And it just kept on getting better and better.
Which one was your favorite?
I would probably go with... Yeah, they're all kind of even Steven on that one. They're because they did get better and better, but then you can't separate them. They're just all just.
Okay.
I've had a little bit of time playing with all of them. We did enjoy having the new style game and being side-scrolling. It was neat being able to play the original characters and then also having Toads. That would probably been a neat spot to have like a Daisy put into it. I know they did it for Mario 3D World, but for some of the other ones, that would have been neat. The levels were definitely nicely done, and they were plenty hard, especially if you had multiple people. It got kind of chaotic trying to figure out who was who sometimes if you didn't pay attention. Half the time you'd be going this way and all of a sudden you're gone. And you're like, hey, what happened to me? And then all these people way over there and you're like, at them.
Which one of the new Super Mario Brothers did you like the most?
The Wii U one, I think a little bit more. It was a little bit more... I don't know how you'd say it. It was a little bit better balanced overall for the gameplay and how things worked out. And I think the panning and everything worked a little bit better for everyone.
New Super Mario Brothers is so innovative. To go back to a 2D format, get away from the 3D format, and kind of revigorate the series. I've owned every single one of them, and they always top themselves. And playing a game like that for it was originally what the DS and then it was the Wii, yes, and then the Wii U version, which I do, and the Luigi, which I love. I love when it's so ridiculous. And Nintendo has this magical way, and they proved it in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, where something can feel so impossible and so daunting, but still make it fun. Like, it's not frustrating. It's like, oh, but you gotta try it again. Where you're like, it's 1 a.m., but we gotta pass this level. We've already put the time in. It's something magic with that series. And New Super Mario Bros., every iteration of it that's come out has proven that time and time again, where they can make a fun, difficult, challenging platformer, but not to the point where you hate the game, where you still adore what you're doing and the experience that you have with that character.
All right, well, Super Mario Brothers Wii. Well, that one is definitely a throwback to the classics, to the old 2D classics. Only this time, though, what I like about it is that it definitely gives back. It's not just a throwback to the old classics in a way to where it goes back to regular good old 2D, but it gives a sense of co-op and that feeling of everybody huddled around, the TV set and just playing the Mario games. Because on this one, you can pretty much have up to 4 players, I believe, just play as either Mario, Luigi, or even the Toads. And you just get a chance to just run around and just, try to get to the end, of course, and just have a great big time. And it also gives you a sense of co-op, something that you really didn't have since the original Mario Brothers co-op game. Well, yeah, pretty much, yeah, because it was just that. Because you didn't really have that kind of feeling since then, or at least as far as I know, where you could have both your character and the other person's character there on a 2D screen at the same time. And Super Mario Bros. Wii really pulled that off. Granted, I only played it in single-player mode, but just the idea that you could do that and have up to 4 players on the screen and just, tear it up as you make your way to the end, it definitely was a real throwback to the old classic games while still keeping it modernized, which is not exactly the easiest thing to do, especially these days. But luckily, though, I'm glad that Nintendo still shows that with that game, yep, we've still got the old school goods, and we can still bring it.
Super Mario 3D World! Woohoo!
And then, of course, was it 2011? I think it was December of 2011. I got my 3DS, and I got my Super Mario 3D Land, which was a complete departure. More like Super Mario 64, but of course the 3D. And again, it's a whole level design thing. Like the one level where you had to jump from one platform to the next, and when you would jump on it, you had to watch what color it was, or else you'd fall through. The suits, I believe that one we had, the bee suit, I think, was the big one? No? Cloud? I don't know. Ghost. There was a whole bunch of suits. Anyway. And then, of course, now we have Super Mario 3D World, which I love playing, because now I get a cat suit. And I love the cat suit.
The 3D Land series wasn't something that was on my radar that much, and I ended up getting a copy when I bought my Wii U. And it's really cool. They changed a bunch of innovation in it. They added costumes. The whole way that the camera system works, the Toad levels, super innovative. Bringing the gamepad into it. It's also a game that, unlike New Super Mario Brothers, it's more novice friendly. It's easier to bring people into that game and play 4-player. It's not as daunting. It's not as... That challenge isn't there, but it's still a lot of fun because the innovation's different. And learning the levels and the different ways that they have the player kind of interact. And they introduced a cat suit, which was brilliant. Which it should be in every Mario game going forward. Mario should have a cat suit. Period. Done.
Super Mario 3D World. Adding elements from every single Mario game ever made was a genius move. adding the 4 players, but they each played differently. Adding the the different suits from different eras, and then adding a few new ones. Adding just a level of difficulty. Having not only the usual 8 stages, but then 8 more stages after you beat the game. And then the last level, which my friend the Wynsten is still trying to beat, Champions Road. One of the hardest levels I will have to ever try to play in Super Mario in my entire life. I really, really enjoyed Super Mario 3D World. I remember when it first came out, me and my friends, we had a marathon. We played it all night long, and I think we beat it probably in like a day or two. Being able to play that was just a stroke of fun, and it really just, again, reinvigorated Mario again for me. To top that, it looked gorgeous, and for the first time ever, like, Mario had a orchestra backing the soundtrack, which made it even sound better than before, because it had beautiful visuals, it had amazing sound, and it really immersed you into the world that you were at. Not to mention the cat suit, which is probably the second best Mario suit ever, which the first being Raccoon Tail, because I'm still partial to that. But being able to do the cat suit and being able to climb walls with your claws and pounce on bad guys. And I love one of the levels was like a giant African savanna, and you felt like you were like a lion just on the prowl in that level. I can remember that. Was just a stroke of genius. So I think Super Mario 3D World was just a great up the ante kind of thing for Nintendo.
That and Super Mario RPG, Legend of 7 Stars, both of those are my top 2 favorite games of all time. Going around playing and saving the day, and and having all your friends there with you and playing those games, and actually being able to play with Rosalina for the first time. She is my favorite princess. I mean, yes, granted, there were multiple princesses. Peach was, multiple girls in Mario's life, but I have to say Rosalina is the top gal for me. I do believe that Rosalina's Luma is actually Gino. I want to say that that's gotta be true. I mean, they're both tiny stars, as you can tell, and they're both, there to save the day, and he may have forgotten how to hop into action figures to make them alive, but still, he's gotta be Gino.
Okay, favorite level in Super Mario 3D World?
I would probably go. Gosh, there's so many good levels that it's so hard to choose. I would probably go. Probably was the levels after you retrieve Rosalina, because I was actually able to play with Rosalina and do some real crazy damage and stuff like that.
Okay. Alright. Not favorite level from Super Mario 3D World. We know what your answer is.
Champions Road. I despise that one. I've kept on playing it over and over and over, and there was no middle to it. There was no save point. There was no area where you can be safe and say, yes, I made it here, and go and run, get more hearts, and come back to that one. There's just absolutely no way to they get it. I've played that one over and over, and I've gotten so good at it. Yeah. There's always that one spot where they have the speed traps, and you have to try and run around and dodge the evil laser rings of doom, and try to stay out of the pits of doom and despair. Oh, evil level. Curse it.
Very fun game. I did enjoy all the neat powers, like the Cashew especially. My favorite character on playing that was Peach, of course. She had that floating ability from the Mario Brothers 2 that was definitely helpful for the Mario 3D Land. So I usually had her and the Cashew and was going crazy, climbing up walls and making a fuss.
Favorite level in New Super Mario Land?
Oh.
Super Mario 3D World, sorry.
I didn't truly have a favorite level. They were all fun. Any ones with a Cashew, I would say, were the funnest.
Okay.
Now, is that one? Yeah, well, unfortunately, I sadly have not had the chance to play that one yet. Not because I don't want to, but because of schedules and such. But from what I've had a chance to see, it pretty much harkens back to Super Mario 3D Land, which I do have for my 3DS. And it pretty much takes the concept of that and it really makes the gameplay more watertight. So, and plus they have a new power-up, so which you can use to make your way around certain levels and whatnot, which is always a great thing. So, again, because I have not played it, I can't really speak too much to it. But from what I have seen, it is a really good game, and it builds on the game Super Mario 3D Land, and 3D for the 3DS. So it builds on that and just really just sharpens up the gameplay on that one. So it's really, really it's a really great game, and I really do hope to play it as soon as I get a chance to get it.
Notable video games!
Now the next entry, and I think we're only going to talk about the Super Mario Brothers games. Nothing like Super Mario Kart or Super Mario Golf or Super Mario Basketball, whatever other Super Mario thing we've got. Now, I did get the GameCube, so the next, system, of course, we could talk about Luigi's Mansion, but that's a Luigi game, and Mario's only in a portion of it.
Super Mario RPG.
Oh, the first RPG ever to be made with Mario. Loved it. And the first time for me to actually play as Bowser. In fact, that's the first game that ever was played that Bowser actually played in. Loved it. Every now and then you gotta pull that baby on out and play it again. And of course, memorable characters. You cannot forget Gino and of course King Koopa and. Well, Mal, he was okay kind of character. Of course, kind of scary when he popped out of his pants there a few times, but luckily they didn't show anything.
Favorite level in Super Mario RPG?
Oh, that is a toughie on that one because I loved everything about it. Probably Monster Town. Going through Monster Town, meeting all the monsters. That and probably the whole entire thing I loved. But I guess I do kind of have a heart for the Monster Town, taking on Jinx and Jerk, and meeting the three Musty Fears. You gotta love those guys.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, we played that a lot. Me and my brother, we definitely enjoyed that when we killed the maxed out. We got all the best equipment. We did everything that you could have possibly on that game, and then even fought the secret boss from the Final Fantasy games, which was so much fun. Jinx, though, he was a nasty little beggar. And when you had to fight him. first time you actually got to play as Bowser, and you got to meet some unique characters that it would be kind of neat to see them come back again, like Gino and Mallow, you know. But otherwise, well, awesome, very awesome game, I would say. Fun RPG. Have to play it again.
Favorite level?
Favorite level. Well, it wasn't truly a level, but it was when you got to go on the mine carts, or you got to do the bell down the river type of thing. That was a blast. Running into things and trying to get all the coins and the frog coins and stuff. The sad, funny scene was the frog giving him the hand to get the carrot cake and give it to him when it was rain and everything. And the sad song.
So Mario RPG, Squaresoft, the Square RPG. Didn't appreciate it for what it was at the time. I love what we've gotten from it. The Paper Mario series, which I'm a huge fan of. The Mario Luigi Superstar games, which I'm a big fan of. Don't remember, it was one of those games that came out and a bunch of people owned it, but because it was a Mario, but it wasn't a Mario. It was hit or miss if I got to play it or not. It was one of the ones that once again all my friends owned, because it was like it had Mario. We lived in that generation where if it said Mario on it, we had to own it. It didn't matter what it was, but definitely that was one that I think spurred more RPG fans than say like a Final Fantasy III or a Chrono Trigger. I think it had just as big an impact in that generation of Mario games or Nintendo games than those other two, including those other two RPGs.
Yeah, honorable mention. For one thing, Super Mario Land, the original black and white for the Game Boy, because even though I didn't get it when the Game Boy came out, let alone have a Game Boy, but just the idea of being able to take Mario on the go finally, and not just in front of the TV set, was really, really cool. And even if the game had only, a black and white screen, and that was pretty much it, but so that Nintendo was able to figure out a way to make it work. And it didn't mess with the formula. And in fact, if anything, they kept those formula, they kept that basic gameplay formula intact, and at the same time, it also allowed the idea of being able to fly. It just really kept. It didn't mess with the formula that was done in the first game. Plus, again, it also added the ability of being able to drive around in a submarine. Hey, not too many Mario games can say that. So there's that, plus the sequel to that one, in which this time you actually got a chance to face off not against Koopa, but in Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins, you got a chance to meet our favorite anti-hero / doppelganger, Wario. Basically, so essentially a guy who, as we find out later on, isn't really a villain, but just a greedy anti-hero. That's all. But still, it was a new character and new concept, new ways to play. And then, of course, the sequel after that, which was, I believe it was called Wario Land 1, which was, I think, from Mario Land 3, I believe. I don't know. But anyway, the third game, the prequel, I guess you could say, pretty much allowed you to play as Wario, which allowed a whole new way of playing the Mario-type games. And that's pretty much it. The only other honorable mention that I would pretty much give would be Dr. Mario, but only because that one pretty much followed in the game in the vein of Tetris, but which had a puzzle thing. But hey, you had Mario in it, and but it worked. It worked, and you still see the Dr. Mario stuff on different kinds of games, even to this day.
Alright, so my honorable mentions, starting off with one of my favorite Game Boy games of all time, which would be Super Mario Land. Let me tell you, even though this game is a little bit weird, a little bit off the beaten path for a Mario game, it really was a very good game, very good level design, and they really used the technology to its fullest at that point. I have to say, though, probably the best part of Super Mario Land was the music. I can remember the music, all the music that was in that game was just phenomenal, and constantly just humming those tunes in my head was wonderful. Now, I never played Super Mario Land 2, which was the 6 golden coins which introduced Wario, but I've heard it was a really, really awesome game, and introducing Wario was kind of fun. My next notable one would have to be Super Mario RPG. Now, I know that Ashrual and the Wynsten have already talked about this game already, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But I did like the game. It was a very fun game, very different than a usual Mario game. Obviously it was an RPG and it was made by Square Enix, or Squaresoft at the time. But it was definitely a feeling to it that was a little bit different, but also the same. And because of Mario RPG, we got other games that are really, really cool Mario games, like one of my favorites, which was Paper Mario for this N64, which I have to say was probably one of my favorite non-Super Mario games. It's another RPG game, but everything's made of paper, and I thought that was really exciting. And then also you got Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, and then Super Paper Mario. All these games really, really are inventive. Then we also have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and all the other Mario and Luigi games as well, that I really, really enjoyed those games. So I think those are probably all of my honorable mentions for Mario, but we are not going to talk about Mario Party because no one is friends by the end of Mario Party. So we're not going to talk about Mario Party. The future! Woo!
Let's see. Well, we've done the 3D realm. It's really hard to say. I think probably the next logical step is now we have the amiibos, and I'm hoping we can do things with the amiibos. But in the direct future, and it's funny because there's a comic up on Facebook right now about this game. But now we have Super Mario Maker. And Super Mario Maker could basically end the franchise right then and there. Because now we're going to be able to build those worlds that we've been playing in and anything else that we can come up with. And the comic, it shows Shigeru Miyamoto, and they're announcing the Super Mario Maker. It's the greatest Mario game ever. Now our people can actually build their own levels, and this will be the last Mario game we ever make. It says, and then the next panel it says Super Mario Maker canceled. So, and I think that really sums up Super Mario Maker because it really is the end-all, be-all when you think about it, because it goes back to the technology we have now. We've said again and again in our podcast, we live in a DLC world now, and Nintendo at this point is really embracing that. Just look at Splatoon, and that'll tell you what we have today that we never had before. We're going to have Super Mario Maker. You literally will have millions upon millions upon millions of levels that you can now play through. You would never have to build anything. You could pick that game up and play and play and play and play. Not only as the original Super Mario Bros., but everything but, and this is the thing that gripes me, the Super Mario 2 has been omitted from this, and I'm really upset about that. But you can play anything else in the library and build levels your own, or you can just keep playing forever. So maybe this is the future. Maybe this is the end of Super Mario Brothers. But in the sense of the games themselves. But I think it goes back to the fact that its influence has touched every single game company in the known world. Everything can thank Nintendo and Super Mario Bros. So that's where I think the future is, at least for now. At least for now.
Alright.
The word icon is thrown around a lot. And really a model of an icon is something that doesn't lose its flavor with age. That always seems timeless. And you can go back and play Mario Brothers or Mario Brothers 2 or Mario Brothers 3, And the game is still fun. People are still buying those games. They're still referenced. They were so innovative. It changed the industry. And saying they made the Italian plumber for American audiences from a Japanese company a household name worldwide. I don't think there's a ceiling for Mario. They could re-release the same games that have been out forever. They can make brand new stuff. And I still think you're gonna get that fan base. And I'm glad they kind of stick to where they are in their history and lineage, because they're bringing another generation. You know, we're on the third generation of gamers who grew up with the Mario series. Like what Sesame Street does for kids growing up in their development, or Muppets, or Mickey Mouse, how you fall in love with these icons when you grow up. Mario is one of those icons. You grow up just loving that character from your earliest memories.
You know, they have many possibilities they could do. It'd be definitely neat to see another Mario RPG style game. Because, I mean, you did one and you did awesome with it. Why not do another one? Otherwise, another Mario 3D World would be kind of fun to play with maybe even some other characters that you don't see often. Maybe bring Gino back or bring Mallow back like what I was mentioning earlier. Something to that effect would be really neat. And there's more Mario games overall. Yeah, have some fun with it.
I would have to say probably a more immersive experience, but still keeping that old school Mario feel. I think that's one of the things that Nintendo has done well is they take ideas that have been in every Mario game so far and they've mixed them together, but they've also innovated with all kinds of new things that Mario can do. I think Super Mario Maker is definitely going to be a big part of that. I think that's going to be a game that's going to stay around for a very, very long time because you can just keep making Mario levels forever and then share them with other people. I think that, you know, Nintendo is very good at keeping it basic, but at the same time adding new kind of elements and kind of tweaking it. I think one of the things, if you listen to everything I've said so far, is every game topped the last game. Every game gave you something new, except for the cape in Super Mario World, but we're not talking about it. But every game, you know, topped itself and improved, and you know, and I think that's really where it's going. Is I think that Nintendo is going to keep improving and keep adding onto it and giving it new life. And sometimes it may not be the best choices. Sometimes it may be the best. Sometimes it may be something that people like. You know, but I think one of the things is we just got to give it a chance. We've got to let it actually come out before we finally decide that we like it or hate it. I think that the Nintendo and Super Mario franchise could really just continue to improve and continue to immerse people in this world. And yeah, I enjoy it very much.
What I see is a Mario game where you can actually not only play as the Mario characters, but also play as the other players. Like, I would say Super Mario's 3D World, kind of like, without the timer. Well, actually, timer would probably be in it, but I would kind of prefer it didn't have the timer because I do love exploring stuff, and that was always the killjoy of that series of any Mario games. Was just the time you have to try and outwit time, get there quick. But that's part of the game, right? But anyways, like I said, what I see is you playing the Super Mario World, and then you taking like multiple other characters, switching the main character out for a different character from a different franchise. So I can see like Zelda, you know, going around slashing up Goombas and stuff like that. I just can't see that. Of course, I can see a lot more of Bowser crying and whining and abuse for that poor guy. But I really do wish that they would hit a few more games out for, him joining Mario and the rest of the game, and you going with Bowser to save the world. He is one of my personal favorite characters. Like, all of them are my favorite characters. Bowser's got a good place in my heart.
I think in a lot of ways, I think Nintendo will continue to put out Mario games, but at the same token, they will always try to look for a new type of gameplay hook to get the players in. It doesn't matter what it is, but I think they will pretty much do what they've always done, which is really think outside the box. So I think probably the best answer I can get to that one is that we really don't know. And I think that's probably best that we don't. So at least that way we're always guessing as to what kind of gameplay hook the next Mario games will have. And it's probably a good thing too, because at least that way we're kept guessing, and that way Nintendo still has that hook to it where, okay, our audience doesn't know what we're going to be doing too much, so that gives us something to work with. So I guess the best way is that we'll get more fun games. Each one with probably new, different gameplay hooks, but one that doesn't detract too much from the formula that makes the old Mario games good, but it's one that will definitely allow us to keep coming back for more.
Happy anniversary, Mario! Woohoo! Happy anniversary, Mario.
Happy 30th Mario day. Anniversary. I still got that wrong.
Happy 30th anniversary, Mario Bros. And Mario mainly for that one, I would say.
Alright. Yo, Mario, this is Danny, the UltraSonic player. I just want to say happy 30th anniversary, bro. And thank you for making my childhood just really super. And, happy 30th anniversary once again. And here's to another 30 more.
Mario, my old friend. A person who was there, yet not there. Happy anniversary, old friend. You're almost as old as I am. The end.
The end.
Hey everyone, UberNerd527 here. I want to thank you so very much for listening to our Super Mario Memories podcast, where we get to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. Now, before we leave you, I just want to let you guys know that you can listen to all of these great people here on the podcast at one of our 3 Arcade Archives Network blogs. You could either go to thearcadearchives.com, you can go to zowikerpowie.com, or thedailyblemo.wordpress.com. And all these fine people you'll find on there as well. You can also contact us if you want to voice your opinion, maybe some Mario games that we may have talked about, even some Mario games we didn't talk about. Feel free to post them on the site here. Or if you'd like, you can go to Twitter at ArcadeA is also a good way. Or you can email us at thearcadearchives@gmail.com. So, for all of us, thank you so much for joining us here for Super Mario Memories. Please remember that this podcast was made in mind for just a celebrational purposes. All the copyrighted material used in this belongs to their copyright holders and all that. Please remember that this is only to be used to broadcast if you have the written permission of the Arcade Archives Network or the Rebellion Productions. Thank you so much again, guys, and see you later. Keep playing like it's 1981.
Message from headquarters. This is a Rebellion production and is part of the Arcade Archives Network. That is all.